Member for Nedlands.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. I have no sweetheart to wish happy Valentine's Day to. Thank you. But I will give a shout out to the two people that wholeheartedly have all of my heart, my son Oliver and my daughter Kate. And a happy Valentine's Day, of course, to the people of Western Australia and of my community in Nedlands. I think it's fair to say that the Cook Labor government is showing a lot of love for all of us. So I do, of course, rise to add my contribution to the Premier's statement, and I reflect the sentiments of the member for Albany that it is indeed a great privilege to represent our communities and to serve as part of the Cook Labor government, a government that responds not only to the emerging needs of our community while also continuing to grow and diversify and indeed transition our economy, while ensuring we create a state and a community that is safe and inclusive for everyone. So public education, I've said it many times, is a key reason that many families decide to call the seat of Nedlands home. It is indeed why my folks moved to Nedlands a very long time ago, so that we could go to Hollywood Senior High School, and it's why we moved back 15 years ago so that our kids could go to Shenton College. The seat of Nedlands is home to 7 public primary schools and 3 public high schools in Shenton College, Bob Hawke College and Perth Modern School. And I do just want to acknowledge the families who have been impacted by the closure of Loretto Primary School. It often surprises people to know that there's actually only one private or Catholic school in my electorate. And now the seat of Nedlands is only home to public schools. But I do want to acknowledge the impact on the families by the closure of Loretto Primary School after the decision of the Loretto Ministries to close the school at the end of last year. I used to do my ballet classes as a primary school student at that school. So like most schools, it's been a really important part of our community, and I know its loss is felt not just by those families but the community as a whole. So last year I had the privilege of standing with the Premier and the Minister for Education as the second stage of Bob Hawke College was officially opened. I was there for the turning of the sod on that second stage in 2021, and so it was great to be there to see the completion of a diverse array of teaching areas, including sensory classrooms for neurodivergent children, a performing arts centre, dance and visual arts studios, music rooms, student services facilities, playing courts, a commercial kitchen and a rooftop garden for the senior students, and other areas where students can engage with nature. Bob Hawke College is of course integrated with Subiaco Oval. They use it for their playing fields during school hours, and it's a shared facility between the college and the broader community. So stage 2, representing a $53.9 million investment in public education for the communities of both of the seat of Nedlands, the seat of Perth and the seat of Churchlands. The second stage provides a real hub for student talent, creativity, learning and importantly student wellbeing. So in terms of wellbeing, it was a personal highlight at that opening to have a one-on-one tour from the Social Justice Club for the facilities that they themselves had advocated for. And once again, I congratulate this active and values-driven group of students for making their school a safe and inclusive space for all of their peers. Their leadership is of course reflective of the culture of the school, which I've always experienced to be inclusive, engaged and active. And it's no surprise then that Bob Hawke College was a finalist in the Excellence in Disability and Inclusion Award last year in the WA Education Awards, which is a category acknowledging schools that demonstrate excellence in meeting the diverse needs of students, parents, families and communities by providing engaging and inclusive learning programs and environments for students with a disability or an imputed disability. And that commitment at Bob Hawke is reflected in the physical buildings of the college, their teaching and wellbeing practices and importantly the culture of the school. And so none of these things occur in a vacuum or by accident. They, of course, occur under great leadership. And so can I acknowledge Principal John Burke and his leadership team, the student counsellors who not only form their own student council but are welcome and active participants on the school board, the board members as well as the college's P&C, all of whom contribute to the culture and the outcomes of the school. Sorry. And before I leave Bob Hawke College early in 2023 with the member for Perth, the Honourable John Carey, we also celebrated the new green light pedestrian crossing in front of the college on Roberts Road, which was an election commitment that we jointly delivered. Bob Hawke College itself was a major election commitment the Labor government made prior to 2017 to provide a new inner city high school for our community. And the college shows how an inner city school can be both part of its natural environment and its local community and maximise all the learning and community benefits, thank you, that being an inner city educational institution has to offer. At Shenton College, the high-quality public education offered has seen the school continue to grow to almost 3,000 students. And in response to that growth, a modular build announced by the Minister for Education in 2023 is now underway. And that build will create additional teaching spaces, staff facilities and student hubs. And students will be moving into that build at the commencement of Term 2. Now, as a parent at the school, one of the things I greatly admire and appreciate about Shenton College is that no matter your child's pathway, whether it be ATAR or VET, they are encouraged, supported and celebrated. Over half of their graduating Year 12 students have completed a Certificate 2 while at the college, and just over 40% a Certificate 3. When I was in high school at Hollywood, it was pretty much UWA or bust. So to see the change in approach and culture is really exciting, in part because my daughter has this year embarked on her Certificate 2 experience at Shenton College, which will see her engage in active volunteering opportunities and develop her work skills, and she will end this year with a Certificate 2. And these are experiences which will lay the groundwork for her to be a skilled and engaged member of the workforce now and into the future. So as I've said, our public high schools in particular are very popular given the high quality co-ed public education opportunities provided. And there is of course then a flow-on effect in their popularity for our primary schools, many of whom are also facing growing enrolments and enrolment pressure. And so to ensure that long-term plans are in place to meet the educational needs of the growing population of young families in my electorate, families seeking, as my folks did and as my partner and I did, the excellent educational opportunities available in the western suburbs, the government is examining long and short-term solutions that will deliver for local students and local families. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the leadership, the principals, the P&Cs and the boards of all of our local schools who have respectfully engaged in advocacy for the needs of our growing school communities. And I'd like to thank the Minister for Education for facilitating an education forum at the end of last year to hear and respond to some of those pressures and concerns. So as someone who's been a tertiary educator for nearly 20 years, can I say to all the students embarking on ATAR this year, and recognising that parents may hate me for saying this because many of my son's friends' parents did not necessarily appreciate me saying this, but I'll say it anyway, that university is but one pathway. And if university is indeed your destination, then direct entry from high school is also but one pathway, and it's not necessarily the best pathway for everyone. So be sure to take care of your mind, your body and your soul as you get underway at this early stage of Year 12. Enjoy those ham and cheese toasties while you can. And while education will change your life, I've certainly engaged in formal education for most of my adult life. It should never come at the expense of your well-being, and in fact it should nourish your well-being. And I'll repeat the motto of Shenton College here, that you are more than your marks. Of course, as of the 5th of February, school-aged children with a smart rider have been able to ride public transport for free, Monday to Friday, and will do so until the end of the school year. This is a great cost of living initiative from the Cook Labor government, but can I add, as the parent of a teenager, it will also save me quite a lot of angst, especially the kind of Sunday night cry of, there is no credit left on my smart rider, what should I do? You'll have to give me a lift to school tomorrow. My team and I have been calling locals the last few weeks to make sure that our community are aware of this initiative, and the saving of both the money and the angst are greatly appreciated. Of course, one of the other ways that we've been supporting students for some time is providing free period products in schools and TAFEs for menstruating students. For a long time, up until 2019, in fact, there was of course a tax on having a period until the GST was removed in that year. The removal of this tax, as well as free period products, are an acknowledgement of menstruation as a normal part of life, and that products should reflect this by being freely available and accessible. One of the many privileges of being the member for Nedlands is that we are home to many statewide services, and so services that serve both metropolitan and regional Western Australia. And I want to give a shout out to a number of these who've had some great wins in 2023. Dress for Success, which is based in Subiaco, prepare women for a return to work, helping unemployed and underemployed women to achieve economic independence. They provide women with professional attire from donated work clothes, as well as styling and grooming sessions, and importantly provide development tools such as workshops and mentoring to help women return to the workforce. In the last 12 to 18 months, they've increased their reach by undertaking a number of road trips to regional WA, and I know that they've engaged with the member for Albany and the member for Geraldton, amongst others, providing mobile and outreach services. And last year they helped one of my friends who was returning to work after many years' break due to health reasons. Her confidence was shaky at best, and she had been living on a disability pension for quite some time, and so her finances were really limited. Dress for Success helped her kind of upskill in preparing for her initial interview. It had been over 15 years since she'd done a job interview, and they provided her with a gorgeous dress to wear for that occasion. She was successful in securing part-time work, and Dress for Success then provided her with a number of outfits for her early weeks at work, which not only gave her confidence but also meant that her first take-home pay in a number of years could go to supporting her developing or re-establishing her financial independence. Dress for Success also hit a number of sustainability goals with their circular fashion efforts, not only providing participants with outfits sourced from donations, but holding regular sales in West Leederville. So this, of course, keeps clothes out of landfill, and all funds raised go directly to service provision. So I'd encourage everyone to look out for these regular sales. Come and visit us in West Leederville. I've sourced many of my work clothes from these sales. It's no secret that I'm a shoe lover, and I was very excited to find a pair of black suede high heels last year. I also want to give a shout out to Living Proud, who are based in West Perth. They promote the wellbeing of the LGBTQIA+ community, and last year did a lot of work in ensuring that Pride Fest 23 was accessible for all people, including people living with a disability. So they ran the Q&A project, Queer and Accessible project, and have really shown themselves to be a leader in making sure that that events are accessible. I attended both the Pride Fair and the parade, and Living Proud were really present and engaged, and as I said, making sure that those events were inclusive and active for all. They're run by a small team of very committed staff and a lot of volunteers, and a lot of our LGBTQIA+ organisations rely heavily on the efforts of volunteers. I've had the opportunity to present a lot of Lottery West grants. It is, again, one of the privileges of being the member for an area that is home to statewide services. But 2 of those grants have been to 2 Lotteries houses that are in my electorate, Oasis House in Nedlands and City West Lotteries House in West Perth. Both have had major refurbishments to ensure that they are fit for purpose and accessible for all the service providers and users that call a Lotteries house home, including the installation of gender-neutral toilets at City West Lotteries House. And just last month I had the pleasure of taking the previous federal member for Stirling, a woman well known to many of us, and another social worker who has served in Parliament, Jan McFarlane, to visit Oasis House. Jan was a mover and a shaker in the community services sector and was actually part of the movement that saw the establishment of Lotteries houses in Western Australia, providing accommodation and shared facilities for small not-for-profit organisations to reduce the overhead and red tape burden for those organisations so that they can, get on with their core business of providing community services. And last year, of course, Lottery West celebrated its 90-year anniversary. Since its establishment, it's distributed a collective $17.3 billion in prizes and grants to the West Australian community. And having come from the community services sector, I know what a significant impact Lottery West has, not just on that sector, but on the people that we serve. And indeed, I sometimes tell the story that I'm a member of Parliament in part due to Lottery West. When I was the Manager of Research and Evaluation at Wansley, I spent a year of my working life securing a Lottery West grant to research the impact of the caring role on grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. And at the time, it was the biggest grant that Lottery West had ever given for research. And it was in undertaking that work that I appreciated that for things to really change for grandparents raising their grandchildren, it was at the level of legislation, regulation and funding. And I've been delighted to be part of a Cook Labor government that has continued to provide for grandparent carers, doubling the annual Grand Carer Support Scheme in 2021, providing access to grandparent carers to the training foster carers can access, and the announcement by the Minister late last year of cost of living relief payment to grand carers of $500 for their first child in their care and $250 for each individual child. And I thank both the Premier and the Minister for these initiatives that not only recognises the really important role that grandparent carers play, but has provided them with really important and immediate cost of living relief. May I seek a short extension, please?
Extension granted.
Thank you. So I've also had the opportunity in this last year to present Lottery West grants to the Wildflower Society, to Saleability, ADHD WA and their new hub in Mount Claremont, the Floreat Toy Library, Yarra Yakin and Diabetes WA for a camp for children with type 1 diabetes. When I was a social worker at PMH, I was lucky enough to go on a couple of those camps, and I think fair to say that even having had 2 babies, I have never been so tired in my life. I also opened the new women's change rooms and building extension at Swanbourne Nedlands Surf Lifesaving Club, again only made possible with a Lottery West grant. I've seen too the ongoing work of Transfolk WA, who with a Lottery West grant in 2021 were able to build their system structures and governance to be ready for program funding, which they received in 2022 for a 3-year period. Their leadership remain as volunteers, and while they continue to go from strength to strength, offering programs and events through their trans-youth space, there is still capacity for them to expand their reach. And I want to thank them and Living Proud, who I talked about earlier, for their ongoing advocacy around a reform agenda. Just last week, I was at the turning of the first sod of Perth Children's Hospice. The hospice will be the first of its kind in Western Australia, will provide best practice care to children at the end of their lives. Its location is really important. It's based on evidence of, the most beneficial and healing location for a service of this nature. So it is It is on the shores of Swanbourne Beach. It'll allow families to be together. It'll allow them to access respite in nature. It's pretty well documented by now, and I really need to repeat that some local government elected officials had some rather interesting objections to the hospice and made some pretty outrageous comments about the site. And when the local government decided to reject the application for the use of that land, and the state government stepped in to make sure that the hospice would go ahead on that really important and appropriate site, many distressed members of my community approached me at the time, concerned about how badly misrepresented we were. And nearly 600 community members have signed my open letter in support of the Children's Hospice, sending a really clear message to families that the values of my community are about care and compassion, and that we will welcome them at what is surely the worst time of any family's life. So I want to acknowledge the leadership of the PCH Foundation, who have raised tens of millions of dollars to build this state-of-the-art best practice hospice. The generosity of the West Australian community has also contributed to this outcome, and the ambassador families who, shared with us their stories at the turning of the sod about what a hospice will mean to their children and to their families, made the occasion very meaningful and very moving. I'd like to also give a shout out to a couple of local heroes. Recycle Man Perth is now the back-to-back winner of the Individual Changemaker of the Year award for Containers for Change. So Vic is a young man with Down syndrome, and Recycle Man Perth is his micro business. So he delivers Vic bins to various businesses, sporting clubs and to private residences within the community of Nedlands, and then with his support team, he collects those and processes them in Shenton Park. And Vic also won the Young Citizen of the Year at the City of Nedlands citizenship ceremony just a few weeks ago. I have one of his bins outside of my office, and it's routinely overfull when he comes to collect it on a Thursday. So the community have really engaged in supporting Vic, and he has, of course, contributed to the amazing success of Containers for Change in keeping eligible containers out of landfill. I also want to say a thank you to a local business, a local cafe, the Little Pantry in Shenton Park. They have participated in offering Nedlands' first memory cafe in partnership with Alzheimer's WA. So Alzheimer's WA approached me about establishing a memory cafe in the seat of Nedlands, because in fact their offices and some of their services are delivered in the electorate, and I knew straight away that I would make an approach to the Little Pantry, sent them a 2-line email asking to meet, outlining why it was that I wanted to meet with them. A week later, when I met with the manager, she presented me with a whole plan about how they were going to, welcome this memory cafe. It's been running now for a couple of months, and the Little Pantry just welcome people living with Alzheimer's and dementia and their carers. They provide them with muffins and cake, and just provide a really welcoming and safe place for them. Of course, last year we had the Voice referendum, and Nedlands for Yes had over 200 volunteers, many of whom had never participated in any kind of campaign before. I door-knocked one Sunday afternoon with an 80-year-old woman who had never ever participated in any kind of political campaign before, but felt that she was compelled to take part. And I just want to give a shout out to some of the key volunteers in the Nedlands for Yes group. Steve Davey, Peter White, Liam Hurley, Ken John, Bronwyn English, Henry Logan, Andrew Elliott, Jeremy Mao, Jules Hutchison, Renee DeLille, Nick Hill and Susanna Morris. Between us, we knocked on over 3,000 doors and made more phone calls. And while Nedlands voted yes across 8 out of 9 boos, of course we know that that result was not reflected across Australia. And so our group of active, engaged volunteers have regrouped to consider how we can kind of capture that energy and commitment to reconciliation, to contribute to continuing to progress reconciliation in our own community and beyond. And we know that volunteers are, of course, the lifeblood of any community. Every year I go and give a guest lecture to the social work students at Curtin and UWA, and one of the questions I often get is, you know, after 30 years of being a social worker and in this particular role, you know, like what gives me hope? And I always talk about volunteers because they are everywhere you go, in every aspect of life, across all of the generations. There are volunteers offering their time and their expertise and their compassion. So I want to finish with saying thank you to a wonderful group of volunteers who have been engaged with my office on a regular basis. They've participated in phoning community members, door knocking, letterboxing and hosting community events such as our regular open offices and coffee mornings. So again, to Jules Hutchison, Leonie Allison, Wendy Wise and Anna Quirk, you are valuable members of Team Nedlands, and we appreciate your contribution to our community. You've helped show our community what it is to be represented by an active and engaged local member, one whose office is clearly open and after decades is also now disability accessible, and whose values actually reflect those of the community: kind, compassionate, educated and engaged. And so to my staff, Bronwyn English, Adam Gilbride and Louise Knox, we wouldn't get the kind of response and engagement that we do without your exemplary commitment, skills and the relationships that you've formed in our community. And a special thank you to Francesca Nardi-Spencer, who has been there since the very beginning and whose enthusiasm, initiative and encouragement laid the groundwork for the team that we are today. I'm so excited for you that your intelligence, your commitment to social justice, your capacity to learn and your initiative are being recognised. West Australians' loss is Victoria's gain. So the West Australian reported yesterday that there are 63 sitting days for the year, and what a great way to start, to hear from the Premier about the vision and energy of the Cook Labor government for Western Australia, and to hear from other members about how this vision will be realised in their local community and for all West Australians. And I'm proud and honoured to play my part. Thank you.